Katrina's Creations, episode 69. This is probably going to be a little bit shorter this week because this is my third video this week that I've put out. In case you've missed my other ones, I had my regular Saturday podcast last Saturday, and I did a yarn pairings where I showed what yarns I was going to put together for projects or what pattern I was going to put them with. And it was so long that it ended up as a two-parter. So part one is last Saturday. Part two was put up, I think it was on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, my knit crate came in, so I did a unboxing for that. So, and today is Thursday, which you will be seeing it on Saturday, actually. So anyway, lots of videos this week that went up. So let's get started. I have 3.5 projects, and you may go, how can you have a half-finished project? I have a completed project that I showed last week, but I hadn't woven the ends in. So I wanted to show that to you. This is my On the Spice Market, and like I said, I showed it last week, but at that point the ends weren't done. So it is completely woven in now. So here it is. And this is for my mother, who will not be surprised now for Christmas because I stopped over their house the other day and my mother goes, "Oh, I like your new yarn storage system." And I went, "How did you know?" She says, "Oh, I saw it on your podcast." I went, "Oh no." She's been seeing what I'm making for Christmas, so Mom just acts surprised. So anyway, this is her On the Spice Market shawl. Oh, and I've got I see an end I didn't get woven right there in the middle. I'll have to fix that. And I'm showing it to you backwards. So anyway, there's the right side. So it's really, really soft. And I think she'll like it because she likes kind of bright colors. So I think she'll like this. So that is my finished On the Spice Market for my mom. Now let's talk socks. Oh, and I have to laugh too because I need spell check. Kathy this week has been my spell check person because Instagram has autocorrect. Well, first off, I put in, if you watch me on Instagram or on Facebook, I put the finished woven ends, you know, the finished product of my On the Spice Market on Instagram and said, I wove the in. I left the word ends out. So she wrote me and she says, what is it that you wove in? So then it wasn't too long after that I posted my finished sock that I had knit with the DP ends, except autocorrect made it fans. So it said, I knit these with 2 fans, or I knit these with fans. And so she asked me, she says, what did you knit that with? Fans? And I looked at it and I went, oh, autocorrect. They didn't like DPNs. So, yes, I am not knitting with fans. I'm knitting with the DPNs. So, the first sock I had finished last week that I showed you was my one done with the 9-inch circular. So, this is it. And then this is the sock done with the DPNs. And we're going to do a comparison in a minute. For those of you who are new to my channel, we have a sock along going till the end of this month with the blueberry waffle sock. And I'm going to talk more about that in a few minutes. But in the meantime, I decided to try to knit 4 socks, 3 different techniques to compare them. And actually, I ended up knitting them 4 different ways. And I'll explain that when I get to this. These are the 2 socks that I knit 2 together. And I actually have them hooked so I didn't get them mixed up with the other pair. I knit them from the cuff down to the heels with 2 sets of circular needles. These I knit all of these with the same size needles. They were US ones or 2.25 millimeter. And I was knitting 2 socks at a time using 2 circular needles at the same time. What I found with that, it was extremely frustrating because where the two circular needles would crisscross, it's like the socks were right here and the 2 cables would cross. The yarn kept falling and getting tangled and twisted in between this section of the cables. And because it's actually not rotating around the same way it does if you're using one circular needle, it just kept rotating on itself and tangling up, and it was a disaster. So I did stick with that method through the heels, from the cuff to the heels, but when I got to the actual foot section, I changed to two. I was still knitting two at a time, but then I changed to the technique where you are using one circular needle and doing the magic loop. I liked that much better. It went much faster, and my yarn did not tangle up, and it worked out much, much better. So let's do a little comparison of what they look like, even though they are all on the same size needle. Now this is my 9-inch circulars, and it's definitely looser than what I did on my DPNs. You can see a little bit of difference when you look at them. You can see right here it's a little bit longer, maybe by 1/4 of an inch. Even though it's the same size, same number of stitches and everything, my tension is apparently looser when I knit on 9-inch circulars. When you look at the rest of the weave, here's the top of the foot. Oops. Here's the top of the foot, and this is with the DPNs. That's the top. This is the top with the 9-inch circulars, and I can actually feel a little bit of difference. You can't see a whole lot of difference between them, but I can feel a little bit more denseness. And then let's look at the back. Okay, again, this is the DPN, and there you can see the tightness of the stitches, and here is this one. And again, it's tight, but it's definitely not as tight as it is here. They look similar, but when you just kind of feel it, you can feel a little bit more denseness on the ones with DPNs. And I think some of that is because I was trying to be so self-conscious that I didn't leave ladders. Ladders are when you move from one needle to the next and you don't get the stitches real tight that are in between the two DPNs, and it creates a little bit of a gap where those two stitches are not as tightly together. I think I was being so self-conscious of that I was overcompensating. So I think that is maybe why those socks are tighter. And like I said, it's nothing that's really going to be noticeable. Once I get it on my foot and it stretches out, you're really not going to tell the difference. But just feeling them, I can feel definitely a little more denseness with the DPNs. Now let's compare the knitted 2 at a time. And those, I think, are probably the densest of them all. Again, this one, let me lay them out so I can keep track of which one is which. Okay, this is the DPNs. And let's look at the back. Again, this is the DPN. This is the knitting 2 at a time. And you can see it's definitely tighter. It's definitely denser. It doesn't have as much give to it as this one does. See the difference? And then compared, this is my loosest sock. This is with my 9-inch circular. You can really see a lot of stretch. And here is the 2 at a time. So, and you can see it also to an extent in the stripes. If you look at the striping on this, here's the white stripe is where it shows up the most. Then look at the white stripe here. See that how much tighter. I'm looking at my monitor to make sure that you all can see what I'm seeing. It's much, much tighter. So, my own personal opinions of all of these 4 techniques, as far as knitting speed, which is the fastest, I would say for me, the 9-inch circulars are the fastest for me. Second, I would say the knitting 2 at a time on one circular needle. That would be my second fastest. The third would be the DPNs, although I did notice every single time I picked up the DPNs, it would trigger my tendinitis that I'm having problems with. and nothing else seemed to bother it except when I think it's because the way you tend to hold the needles a little bit. I think I was curling my hands in a little bit more because I'm using 4-inch DPNs. So I think I was tighter this way, plus it was a little stressful at times. And as a result, I've got a little tendonitis going on here. So my the least speedy way of doing it was with the 2 at a time on 2 circular needles. That was, to me, I spent more time untangling the mess. And it wasn't just the balls tangling up between themselves, it was the way they were getting wrapped and caught around the cords, like I said, in between the 2 cords that were between the 2 socks, if that makes any sense. As far as tension, I think my tightest tension probably came very close between the DPNs and the knitting 2 at a time. The knitting 2 at a time, I think, is probably my tightest tension, just by feeling the socks themselves and the fabric that it created. I would say that it's a little more dense. My loosest, of course, was my 9-inch circulars. So the other 3 were closer, but the definite difference you could see was with the 9-inch circulars. My ease of technique, which one did I find personally the easiest for me, again, was the 9-inch circulars. You don't get the yarn tangled up, but the only problem is you're not knitting 2 socks at once. So it is going to take you longer. If I had to pick which techniques I would stick with, if I'm going to do 1 sock at a time, I would go back to my 9-inch circulars. If I'm going to do 2 socks at a time, I would do them on 1 circular needle and just magic loop it. So that's, again, my own personal feelings on it. And I did think I would show you something else. These were the socks I knit to go along with our sock along. This, again, is the same pattern as these, just these are little shorty socks because I knew I didn't have enough yarn to make 4 full-sized socks, and I wanted the comparison to be with the same size needles and the exact same yarn so that I could have an exact, I could compare apples with apples. So this is the set of socks, or the pair of socks that I made for our knit along. Now, this is just to show you how much difference there is in a half a size of a needle. These were knit on 2.75s. This was knit, which I think is a size 3. I'm not sure. I could be totally wrong there. But anyway, this is a size 2.75 millimeters. This is a size 2.25. So we're only talking a half a size. It's not a full step down. It's it's just a half a size down. But look at the difference with this. These socks I'm actually going to rip apart because they're entirely too big for me. I put them on and they have stretched out. I have worn these a lot at this point because I'm using them like slippers sort of. But when they stretch, they're too big for my foot and they're too big here. I'm a fat person with short, tiny little feet. So my socks are spinning around. I keep ending up with the heels up at the top of my feet. So they're just not staying in place, and so I need to make these over again with smaller needles. But I thought it would be interesting for you to see the difference in the stitch size. Here is the 2.75s, and here is 2.25. So let's see if I can get to the flat part of the sock, because that's where you really can see it more so. In the pattern, you can't see it as much. So I don't know if you can see that real close or not, but the stitch size is quite a bit different here than it is here. So who knew that there was that much difference just in a half a size? So on with our sock along. It ends this week. It will be running until the 28th. The winner of the sock along I will be drawing on next week's podcast, which will be March 3rd. In order to enter, you just need to submit a pair of socks that you've knitted between January and the end of February, because that's when our sock along began, was the beginning of January, and again it runs till February 28th. In order to enter, you must be a member of Ravelry. because the prize will be a pattern on Ravelry of your choice up to $6. But the only way you can get the pattern is if you're a Ravelry member, because the download will come through Ravelry that way. So, I have had a couple people say they've had some problems entering onto the Ravelry group. The Ravelry group is Katrina's Creations. I'll put it in the down bar here. And I will put a link down in the description box. If you click on it, it should take you right to the Ravelry groups. But I have had a couple of people say that they're having problems for some reason. I know Ravelry has its glitches because I've had some issues with it in the past. So if you've knit a sock and you have a Ravelry account, but you can't seem to get it over to the groups page, at least put it in your projects and then send me an email, either through Ravelry or at KatrinasCreations@yahoo.com, and just say, I entered a picture and it won't go through, and then I will go over to your project page and look at it and say, yes, there's your socks. I can verify that, yes, you have socks. Because I know that there was at least one person that told me that, and they have the picture in their projects page. I looked at it, but for whatever reason, it's not connecting. So I was able to go over to her projects page, see the socks, to verify, yes, she's finished them, but it's just not loading up. So if you're having problems, please do that, and that way we can try to get it so that you will still be entered, just in case. I don't want somebody to not be qualified because they had a problem with Ravelry. But again, you do have to be a Ravelry member and at least post the picture in the projects page if you can't get it on the groups. So if you have any questions, just send me an email at KatrinasCreations@yahoo.com. I have put, I think last week I had a tutorial for Ravelry if you don't know how to sign up. So it's free and it's fun, and so yeah. So if you have any questions or anything, just send me an email and we'll try to get it figured out. So as far as our next thing, let me show you my works in progress. I have been spending a lot of time working on those socks this week because I really wanted to make sure that I had those done for the end of our sock along. So the other project I've been working on is a poncho. This is by it's a Katia paint yarn, and the pattern is a free pattern on katia.com, and it is a poncho. And I haven't done a huge amount this week. Let me find my stitch marker. Where did my stitch marker? I wonder if my stitch marker fell off. Oh, there it is. It's really tiny. I have a little stitch marker right here. So I've knit from here to here, and this is a worsted weight yarn, so it knits pretty fast. I did have to rip back a section. In fact, I had to rip back down to here a little bit. I got partway up, I got about up in here and realized that I had gotten off in the pattern, and so I ripped it back and had to fix that. So yeah, so this is the other side. It's two-sided, of course, two-sided poncho. I already have one side complete, so this is the other side. And you guys are probably getting sick of seeing it by now. I hope I finish this soon because I'm kind of getting sick of working on it. I'd like to just have a finished project at this point. My other project that I've been working on, of course, is my hitchhiker, and I am trying desperately to get this finished by the end of this month because Must Love Yarn is having a knit along for the hitchhiker, and it ends on February 28th. And I've got a little ways to go yet. This is how much yarn I've got left. This is Zauberball, and this is it's a fingering weight. If you can see, it's a fingering weight. And the colors are pretty true to color, except that this is a green, kind of a tealy green. It's close to the color that's in here, but it's a little bit more vibrant than what's showing up. And here's my stitch marker where I was last week, and this is a stitch marker that Kathy sent me. And the colors it's pretty close, but like I said, this green that's in here is really a vibrant turquoisey green. It's not the blue that it's showing up. And it goes down to here. and I've put some eyelet in mine just because I wanted it to, I'd get bored with this pattern. It's a pretty pattern, but it's a very easy car knit. It's not one you have to really carry the pattern around with you, so after a while it gets a little monotonous. I'm actually wearing one of my hitchhikers. This is my fourth hitchhiker that I've made, because I made some for Christmas presents a few years ago. And this yarn is a mixture. It's a chartreuse. It was a solid chartreuse color, and I forget where I got that from. And then the blue that's in this, let's see, it is showing up pretty close to color. The blue that is in this and some of the chartreuse mixed in together is some that I bought from the purple fleece, and I actually spun the yarn and then I plied it together. And then the hitchhiker has these little like teeth along the edge, and so with this one I actually put little beads that are in the kind of a crystal color blue. They're iridescent blue that kind of tie in with this blue color that's here. So the only thing with this is it is wool, and it's a little itchy. But yeah, it has some yellow in it too. So that's all yarn that I spun, and then I put it all together. So that is my 2 works in progress. So now I'm going to move on to the acquisitions. And I have a couple this week. If you watched the Knit Crate unboxing, and I will put a card up here if you want to check it out. If you haven't watched it and you want to watch the unboxing first, you might want to pause and then come back. Otherwise, I'm going to show it. This was called, okay, I'm back. I found it. I had to go look. It got mixed in with some patterns. This was the pattern name, or each month they have a theme. This is the theme for this month. It's called the Petrichor, which means the smell of rain. So kind of that nitrogen smell that you get. Yeah, it is the smell after rain. It calls to mind the soothing sounds of rainfall, the glistening shine of wet pavement, and enhanced green of the trees. The world comes alive in new ways after a storm, the light shining and the reflecting against newly slick surfaces. So that was their theme this month. And it came, you could get your yarn, it would come in 3 different colors. Now you don't get any choice. That's part of the surprise. So I was cheating and watching other podcasters because mine was a little late getting to me this month, because they had some delivery issues. So there was one that came out that was a very, very vibrant blue. I mean, it was, trying to think something that would be close to it to even describe it. It was almost a cobalt blue. It was gorgeous. And then there was a green. The cobalt blue was called Rainfall, or Raindrop. The green was called Verdant. And then there was a color called Mist. Now, I kept thinking every podcaster that I watched got the Raindrop. So I'm like, I'm going to get blue. I'm going to get blue. I got green. But it's actually very pretty. It's very, very soft. It is called Verdant. It is a silken worsted, 40% merino wool, 30% silk, 30% alpaca, and it's a worsted weight. There's 149 yards in each skein. Let's see. Greens and blues do not show up well in my camera. So this looks blue. It's actually not. It's almost a deep, deep turquoise with some emerald green tones in it, and it has some darker greens in it as well. It's really, really pretty, and it's very soft. And they give you a pattern you can put with this. It's a cowl pattern. They give you a crocheted pattern or a knitted pattern. So I am probably going to do that pattern that came with it, because this is such a unique color. I don't know if I could find something to go with it, because there's even little shades of kind of blue in it, and almost like a black, because it's such a dark green. So it's really, really pretty. So I got that. And then, if you remember last week, I showed you all a shawl that a lady at my work gave me. Here it is. It's just a very basic pattern. It just looks like it's stockinette with a little bit of, every so often they throw a garter stitch in so that you have a little bit of a ribbing here. And it's just some yarn overs on this end and yarn overs on the sides, and it starts at the top and works its way down. And so here are the colors with it. Now the reason she gave me this shawl, she bought it from a consignment store, and when she got it home, she realized that there was a strong kind of, I don't know if it was a wool wash that this was put in, or if it was packed with dryer sheets. I mean, it's not an offensive smell, but it definitely has a, I can't wear heavy scents. They make me literally nauseous. So it doesn't smell like that. It's a very light scent, so it doesn't bother me, but she was really sensitive to it. So she bought it, she couldn't wear it, and she tried washing it by hand, and she couldn't get rid of the smell. So she gave it to me to see if I could try to get rid of the smell. And I tried everything. I still can't get rid of it. I can still faintly smell it. And so I took it to my local yarn store, and the yarn shop owner said try washing it in vinegar with water and see if that'll help it. I used too much vinegar. It now smells like a salad, so it's going to have to be washed again, so that I can wear it and not smell like a walking salad dressing. But anyway, the shawl is really pretty. So I went into my yarn shop because I told her, the girl that gave this to me, she absolutely loved it. I said, what is it about this shawl that you like? I said, is it the shape, or is it the colors, or is it a combination of both? Because I thought, she bought it for a reason, and I feel bad that she's giving me something that she paid, I think she said $30 for. So I said, what is it about this shawl that you particularly like? So I can try to match it. Is it... And she was like, she liked everything about it, but she really liked the colors because she could wear it with jeans. She liked these pinks. It's showing up as a white. I mean, there is a white in here, right here, but then there's a real light pink right in here too. So she really liked kind of the combination of colors. So I thought, okay, I wonder if there's anything out there that is similar to this, because this was all done with one skein of yarn. At first I thought it was different and they had just like striped it together themselves. But when I looked at it closer, you could see where the color changes occur. So it was done with one ball of yarn. So I went to my local yarn store. Oh, and in the meantime, she had actually found the lady who had knitted this, and this is actually a wool cotton blend, and it said hand wash, lay flat to dry, but it didn't say what the name of the yarn was. And it was knit by this lady. I'm covering over her personal phone number and email because I don't believe she's in business any longer. You can't really read it. It says Lavender Fiber Art. And looking at the phone number, it actually is local to where I live. So it came out of a place that's like 5 miles down the road from where I live. So apparently it was knitted, but I went online to try to look up this lady because I thought maybe if she had more out there, I could find out what the yarn was or something like that. I couldn't track it down anywhere. So I don't think she's in business anymore. So I was wandering around my yarn store with this in hand and looking and holding it up to all these different yarns to see if I could find something that had the same colors. How close is this? It has, let me see if I can hold this up so you can see the comparisons. It has this gold, it has it right here. It has the purples in it right in here. It has all of the same colors. There's the pink. The only colors that it does not have, that this does, is the white and the real light pink. And I actually have some white and some real light pink. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit this up for her because the pattern's easy enough to figure out because, like I said, it's very basic. And just when I get to where the pink is in the skein, I'm just going to put in a light pink beside it and the white because that's where it is in this pattern. So I think I got pretty close. It's not exact, but I think it'll work. So that was exciting. Knit night was a riot this week. We were sitting there and we were talking about felting because one of the knitters at our knit night was he was making a tea cozy. So we got to talking about, you know, knitting and felting and sizing and everything. And we all talked about our felting disasters. And I mean, I started out one time trying to felt a pocketbook. And so I knitted it, you know, like oversized, went to shrink it, and apparently it was 2 different types of wool, but shrunk at different rates. So I had a purse that a dachshund could have fit in. I mean, it was like this tall and this wide. It was absolutely crazy. And somebody else had the same thing happen. So then we started talking, and this one lady shared how she felts her projects, and she says, I use a plunger, and all of us looked at her and went, she goes, it's a clean one, it's a clean one. We use a clean bucket and a clean plunger. And she says, I put it in the bucket, and I sit there and plunge it with the plunger, and that's how I felt my projects. So then we got to laughing, because I was like, or the next time your toilet stops up, you could just throw in whatever projects you want. You could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We all decided that was disgusting and not quite the natural dye we were going for. So then it brought to mind this crazy story. Yes, it's crazy story time, yes. Years ago, I had a girlfriend, and she and I liked to go to yard sales and flea markets and auctions. In fact, there was a group of us women that every Monday night, that was our social outlet. We went to the local auction and watched all the crazy things people would buy. We very rarely bought things for ourselves, but we had fun watching everybody else do it. So I'm over her house one day, and she says, I bought this gorgeous soup tureen at the auction I think it was a yard sale. I'm not sure. She bought it at a yard sale or flea market. She goes, let me show it to you. So she gets this ceramic bowl with a lid, puts it on the table, and I'm looking at it, and I said, that's not a soup tureen. She goes, yeah, it is. I said, no, that's not a soup tureen. She goes, oh yeah, that's a soup tureen. I said, Soup tureens have a notch in the lid for the ladle to come out, and they have 2 handles on them so you can lift them. I said, that's a chamber pot. She was like, nah, that's not it. I said, that's a chamber pot. She's like, are you sure? I said, I'm positive. It's got 1 handle, no notch in the lid. That's a chamber pot. She goes, oh. I said, why? What's wrong? She says, I had company over last week, and I served them soup in it. I thought it was a soup tureen. She says, do you think they figured out it was a chamber pot? So, yeah, she served her guests soup out of a chamber pot. So, yeah, that was our funny story of the week. So, I'm going to do some show and tell. We have a couple of submissions. Kathy has a hat, so I'm going to show a picture of hers. And I think she sells those at craft fairs and stuff, just the way she had worded it in Facebook. I think it was for a craft fair. I think she does knitting for that. And then Peg knitted the Basic Stitches cowl that I have. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And she knitted that, but she added a little, gathered at the top. I guess gathered at the top or the bottom. It has a little drawstring and a little bow on it. It's adorable. So I'm going to stick that in there. I also knit a pair of socks, but I'm going to save showing that because next week, before I draw the winner, I would like to be able to do a parade of socks, and I want to show all the finished projects that you all have made so we can all look at everybody's socks. And those of you who don't have Ravelry accounts, you can at least be able to see what all the different entries were, because there's some gorgeous ones. There's some beautiful colors. We even have some crocheted socks. Yeah, we've got all different types of stuff. So, next week, be watching for our parade of socks. Make sure you get your finished socks in the Ravelry group, into the pictures. Just tell me something about them. It could be anything about the socks. So tell me something about them and post it in the Ravelry group by February 28th. And like I said, next week we will be drawing a winner. So good luck to everybody. And I am looking forward to seeing all of the photos. If you do have a problem getting your photo to post in the Ravelry group, just send me an email either by Ravelry or on my Yahoo account and let me know, and then we'll try to work something out. If you've enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up and If you would like me to do a tutorial for how to knit 2 socks at a time with 1 circular needle, just leave a comment down below and let me know. So otherwise, I will see you again next week. Thanks again for watching, everybody.